Hey, everybody, welcome to Burn the Ship. This is the podcast where we connect entrepreneurs or professionals that can help you go all in on your business. Our goal is to talk to people that have walked the walk, talked the talk, been through all the things that we experience as small business owners, and come out the other side more knowledgeable, with more experience, more skills to help them run a successful business. And we're trying to bottle up some of those skills and experiences and teach them to you guys. So, first of all, I appreciate you very much, Rob. I appreciate you coming on the podcast and giving us a little bit of your time. It does mean a lot to me. Anybody that shares that time, both with us and with the audience, is very valuable to us. So, I wanted to tell you up front that it does mean a lot to me. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and your business? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Robb Auspitz. My company is Groovy Hemp Company.com. We sell therapeutic hemp products, basically CBD oil products, including tinctures, edibles, capsules, topicals, soft gels, pet products, personal item products. We don't sell any recreational hemp for a lot of reasons, mostly because I am very focused on CBD wellness. And what I've learned, part of what I've learned in this industry is to really stay focused on what we do best and what I really am interested in. Personally, I have a degree in biology. Out of school, I worked in a clinical chemistry lab for 3 years, kind of learned a lot, learned a tremendous amount, learned how to be very analytical, learned how to be very organized. The stuff they pretend to teach you in school, but don't. And but after a while, I got bored with it and went into different things, mostly the computer industry. In the computer industry, in I worked in sales and support, and then moved into selling and installing networks, meaning big networks. Then since did that for about 20 years, and then moved into web design and just consulting. I was at my favorite local diner. I'm in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. My local diner that I really love is Cross Keys Diner in Doylestown. Went Go there basically every weekend, Saturdays and Sundays for breakfast. About 4 years ago, a couple of the part-timers, cashier and a bus kid, were talking about CBD. I had no idea what that was. So I said, "What is CBD?" And they started explaining it to me. And they said, and their comment was, "Go to look into this. That could be a nice sideline for you. I mean, you do e-commerce websites. Why not try this?" So I said, I could use my own website. I could put one together for myself and see if it flies. Make a long story short, I did several months of research on CBD and the industry. And back then, it was really like the wild, wild west. All kinds of crazy stuff going on, all kinds of people with bizarre agendas, all kinds of bad information, misinformation. It was a classic case of signal versus noise. And because of my background, I was able to really cut through the noise and see what the signal was and made a decision that was basically go for it, put a store together and see what comes out of it. And that, to a degree, is what I've been doing the last few years, working with a store, groovyhempcompany.com, and really focusing, testing this, trying that, going in different directions until I really got focused on the CBD wellness end of the industry, which again, with my background, is something I'm very comfortable with.
So, tell me a little bit about your industry in general, right? Because I think from the outside looking in, both from a consumer perspective and from a business perspective, everything has begun to relax a little bit around the CBD, hemp, marijuana space in general. I think the overall tone of how people feel about those products, in general, is changing. So can you kind of walk me down that journey of, like, what was your industry like when you started, and what are some of the big changes that have kind of happened along the way that have either been made your life a little easier or made them more difficult?
Well, actually, initially it was crazy because, again, a lot of bad information, a lot of bad products, bad information, misrepresentation, some fraud. Uh, the FDA and the FTC kind of stepped in, but they had, number one, they had COVID to deal with, and there was actually a bizarre intersection between CBD and COVID early on, and the FDA stepped on that very hard, which I appreciate. Uh, Basically, a lot of people were misrepresenting CBD as being able to prevent and cure COVID, and that just is not accurate. CBD can do things to help you through if you get infected with COVID, It can do things to help you through it. But at this point in time, outside of maybe some studies that were done in vitro, meaning in a test tube or a petri dish, it is not going to cure COVID. It's just the way it is. But
Right.
there were people out there representing that it could and selling products that they claimed would do it, which was completely bogus, and the FDA stepped on them. Unfortunately, because the FDA was very tied up with COVID and really didn't understand the hemp or marijuana or anything cannabis, they only went so far, and they kicked it back to Congress, which I thought was an incredibly brilliant move. Like, wow, what a group to send it back to. Geez, give me a break.
Sure.
It forever amazed me. And they're still going back and forth on that. The latest version of the Farm Bill is still up in the air. The 2023 Farm Bill still hasn't been passed.
Right.
They're not even close to finishing writing it yet. It may pass after the election or may not pass until 2025. But the point is a lot of bad stuff is going on, and it took a while for a lot of the bad actors to get flushed out of the business, pushed out of the business, and just really thrown out of the business. And a lot of how that happened was, as crazy as this sounds, I think marijuana becoming legal in more and more states helped kind of normalize how people look at cannabis as a whole. And more research is being done on CBD. So you can see that there is legitimate therapeutic value to what CBD can do. Now, as of right now, when you write up, not theoretically, when you write up a product profile on let's say a tincture, there are certain terms you cannot use absolutes with. You can't say absolutely will stop pain, absolutely will reduce inflammation, absolutely will stop anxiety, etc. You have to use conditionals with that. May reduce pain, may relieve inflammation, may relieve anxiety, etc. And that actually helps in the sense that it reduces expectations to a more realistic basis. The fact of the matter is, in terms of therapeutic stuff, there's a lot about CBD and a lot about marijuana that we still don't know. And you'll notice that I'm citing both of them. Um, I'm an old guy. I'm well over 65. I'm 74 years old. Why hide it? You can see it on my Facebook profile. And I started smoking weed like in late 1967. So, it's this is not new for me, believe me.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of,
And you're alive.
oh, very alive and haven't killed anybody. And I mean, hasn't the only thing I ever attacked after smoking weed was a bag of Doritos.
Yeah, I heard that.
The point is with more acceptance for marijuana and more information coming online about CBD, there's more gradual acceptance that both are positive and can help.
So do you see that your like typical client has kind of changed? Because I would imagine that beginning in that industry, it's either people that know enough about it to be interested and are willing to give it a try, or it's people that have been fed some of that bad information and they want to, their false pretenses based on exactly what they're getting involved with these types of products for. Whereas nowadays, I would assume that it's something more well received by the general public that opens up the client demographic to you to be a lot wider lens. So is business growing? Is business shrinking in the CBD space? And I would imagine it's growing, but tell me a little bit about kind of how the client has changed over the years.
Well, here's the thing. Initially, you had early adapters, people who would just jump on anything that's new. You had people who were looking for that magic bullet that will make them perfect and wonderful. That type of thing. Who would just jump from fad to fad to fad. And you had people who had some serious education concerning anything cannabis who said, yeah, I'm going to definitely jump on this now that it's legal. Remember, hemp was not legalized until 2018, which is
Okay.
which is ridiculous when you think about it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And as you know, outside of currently, between medical and recreational, 38 states have approved marijuana. Federal government's still playing with it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
after this election, maybe we'll get some clarity. You can't even open a dispensary and use a credit card in many cases because the banks and merchant gateways are still gun shy about servicing marijuana dispensaries. Yeah, they don't want to get shut down. They don't want to have some attorney general send them a letter saying, "Hey, you can't do that. You can't do that in whatever state." So they're
Yeah, no, and that won't change until the federal regulation changes because from a payments perspective, the fear is that all of that like your credit card data is transferred over state lines while the process is being handled. So like, if your sponsor bank is in Kentucky or in Atlanta, like a lot of them are, or, Concord or wherever they may be, you see that transaction leaves Colorado, California, Washington, Oregon. It goes to wherever that server space is, and then it returns itself back. So the fear on the payment side of things is that you are actually breaking federal regulation by taking that um, data and taking it to a place where it may be, still under that illegal from federal regulation. So that's the fear from us, is that it's hard to find everything that lives in one place. And some people in the payments world have um, honestly gone above and beyond to find ways to make that happen in a compliant manner. So there are some solutions out there for the CBD, hemp, and marijuana space that are all a little bit different from one another. But that's the fear from a credit card processing perspective, is that there's still some federal regulation that is just sitting there because there are other things to do that you may actually be breaking by facilitating those transactions for those people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Early on in the CBD space, it was murder just getting a business bank account for CBD.
That's a fact.
It was crazy, and I had no idea. I was so used to being able to open up a business bank account. It's like you walk in this branch and you open it up. You should give them the paperwork, et cetera, and you you walk out with two coffee mugs and an account. No big deal.
Right.
This was like, it took me 8 months to get a business banking account, and that actually happened through Square. Initially, Square set up an experimental program for CBD merchants. I happened to hear about it actually through a guy who I used to work with at one of my clients, who's now a very, very big marijuana advocate. And God bless him, he was on the bus with that early. Everybody else is like, "Oh, sure, David. Yeah, right." He David had it nailed. He absolutely had it nailed. I give him all the credit in the world for that. Thing is, most other people were like, "No, no, no," and part of it filtered over to the CBD side. And early on, the CBD industry did not help itself because you had a lot of bad actors who were selling bogus product, and the products got returned. So on your end, you were seeing an
Mm-hmm.
abnormally high return rate, and that's obviously, infinitely better than I do. But that's a major, major red flag. And they just started shutting people down hard,
Absolutely.
and would just to get um, into a merchant gateway. There were all kinds of crazy fees and holdbacks and all that. Square happened along with that experimental program, and I'm like, okay, sure, I have nothing to lose, because it was extremely frustrating at that point. So I was really with Square for about 3 years, and they got kind of weird, squirrely last around the holidays last year, and made all kinds of bizarre demands like, okay, now we're going to formalize this, and we're going to clean this up. We're going to do it all ourselves. And their premise was things that they went way over and above what the FDA would allow us to do, in terms of, you can't use the word inflammation, you can't use anxiety, you can't use pain. And a bunch of us were like, dude, we're using conditionals, may help, as I had mentioned earlier, may help, could help, et cetera, et cetera. And that was not acceptable to them. You could not reach anybody on the phone or email them direct. It was very bizarre. So I jumped ship, and a lot of CBD vendors jumped ship from Square. But initially, it was a lifesaver for me because it was like, which crook do I go with? You know?
Right.
And
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I mean, it's additionally difficult when not only are there federal regulations, but the payment processing side really doesn't know what they're looking at, right? Because risk is interpreted in a very strange way, right? It's do we trust the business or do we trust their customers or do we trust both of them or do we trust neither of them, right? So like one of the least risky things is like liquor stores, right? Like you would think that that would be something that falls into that risky category, but liquor stores never get chargebacks. That was the same experience I got from some of the CBD hemp and marijuana companies that we were doing business with really early on in the needs for payments for those guys was that there was all like you said, there's a bunch of bad actors misrepresenting products with a super high return or chargeback rate. But then you saw the people that actually did things the correct way in a compliant fashion, and they never got chargebacks, right? Like what their products were accurately represented. They were sound business people. They had money in the bank. They had employees and retail locations, and they did things the right way. And I think that's really what's come to rear its head is that you see people that are doing business the right way in your industry, and it's irrefutable the data that they have that we've done 100,000 transactions and we've gotten 2 chargebacks. You know what I mean? So
exactly,
it's crazy what you see when you really dig into the data that you say, oh, this is not even close to what we thought it was going to be, because now we're realizing that the customers are more knowledgeable than we realized, right? And the businesses are more sound people that are investing in a space that they believe is going to grow exponentially over years. And now we're kind of in that waiting period where it seems like a lot of the things on the back end have been set to help businesses grow, but we're waiting on these last couple of things that go through the legislative side to really open the floodgates. And
I,
like I know people are like fighting, scratching, and clawing over those grow licenses, those retail licenses that states like Maryland are issuing. There are people that have bought those years in advance and pay yearly for those licenses that they may not be able to be used until, like you said, the farm bill gets passed, whenever that may be. That is going to help their business be successful. So, from your perspective, right? What are some of the things that you've had to navigate when it comes to dealing with these changes? Like how have you kept yourself in a place to be successful all these years, having to deal with, both the government dragging their feet and, ignorance of what your industry was actually doing from a payment processing side, because our reaction is to be very risk oriented and at least be educated on the risk, and what people were perceiving in the payments world as a risky thing has turned out not to be risky.
well, what I did was, I'm always open to learning anything new and learning it thoroughly. I mean, when you work, with my degree, background in the lab, networks with a network, the difference, a philosophical difference between doing web design and installing a network is a network either works or it doesn't. It's either right or it's wrong. If it's wrong, that's you got a problem. But with a website, it's like, well, I don't like this, I don't like that, change this, change that, but it still functions. And most of the time, it still functions fine. And so part of my orientation is the 0-1 thing. It either works or it doesn't, which means I'm a lot more analytical than a lot of other people in my industry. So I sat down and said, what is going to work in terms of a website and what isn't going to work? And I came to the conclusion that put good, solid, accurate information on the site, give the consumer every opportunity to learn whatever they need to learn about the products. And that's why you can go to my site, you find ingredients, you find the the COA, certificate of authenticity, which is basically independent lab results, that type of thing. You find a list again of what the product is, how it could help you, all that type of stuff. It's a lot of factual information. And I think that makes a big difference. I don't have a lot of hyperbole on my sites. And I'm also with my content, I try my very best to get good, accurate information out to the consumer so they know what they're buying, so they know what they're putting in and on their body. It's
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go. And so like that seems like it's kind of been your superpower, right? Is that your goal has always been to accurately represent your products and where the health, think about the health side of things more than you think about the marketing side of things, right? And that's a rare thing in most industries is like you have to be that salesperson for your business. You have to be that person that talks about your products in a confident way that makes people want to buy from you and that trusts you. And it was a strange position that your industry was put in where they said, okay, you're very limited on the things that you can say and the picture that you can paint for people out of your product. So finding that balance, I think, is literally one of the trickiest things in your industry about not being, non-compliant because you're saying words that are not allowed and still being able to accurately represent the use cases of your product in a way that makes people want to buy it to solve their own problems.
I
Right? I literally genuinely think that's one of the most difficult things about your industry.
Yeah, oh, it's very, very hard. And it was, what a part of what I learned as a person, and here I am, at that point, almost 70 years old, about 70 years old, starting a new business, going into a completely new industry. I learned to be a lot more open-minded. I learned to listen better, hear what people said, not what I wanted to hear. So I had a better grasp on the information. And I do have writing skills. You look at my site, you can see that I have writing skills. I have pretty good writing skills, and I needed them because you can't tell the story without being accurate. I mean, there's funny. Here's a quick one. This is funny. I I connect with a guy on LinkedIn. He was a hemp wholesaler. I said, "Oh, sure, sure, why not?" It's still LinkedIn. It doesn't mean you're married, That doesn't mean you have to do business with a guy. So 2 days later, he sends me a message, and again, it's the COVID thing. I have capsules, CBD, CBGA, and CBDA capsules that are guaranteed to stop COVID. I just laughed. I didn't even respond, and he disappeared very quickly. So you still have a lot of that, but the fact that I learned how to listen and learned how to cut through the noise and really find the accurate signal makes a big difference. And that's learning to listen and hear better. That makes sense.
Oh yeah, it definitely does, and it's not just your industry, right? A lot of health and wellness related stuff is the same way, right? And it all kind of goes through this phase, and I think maybe this one's taken a little bit longer because the government is trying to kind of figure out how to get their hand onto a lot of this stuff, but it's a mixture of promoting wellness and a product that works and creating a business out of making people better, right? Like we've always heard that every time you turn on the TV, it's you need to go ask your doctor about this pill or this, treatment or this thing. But it's so interesting to me the criteria that you were held as is almost the same as a doctor, right? You're held to this standard of represent your products only in this fashion, or you're going to have issues and we could potentially shut you down and fine you, or you could have other business implications that are not good for you, right? Which is always so interesting to me because like I don't believe the pharmaceutical industry is held to that same standard. Personally, as a consumer, someone that doesn't really know that much about all these places, just from the outside looking in, it's like, I hear those list of 100 potential side effects every single time I see one of these commercials for a random pill. And something as low risk and high tolerance as the products that your industry puts in front of consumers does not seem like it should fit in that same agenda.
Well, here's the problem is one, anytime we only have one hemp CBD hemp product that has been approved by the FDA. That's Epidiolex, which is which is a spray that it's used to treat severe Lennox-Gastaut syndrome and Dravet syndrome, and those are severe seizure syndromes for very young children. And most of those kids, if untreated, most of those kids don't make it past the age of 5 and 6, and
Wow.
their development is severely impaired, the family structure is destroyed because that child is seizuring all the time. It's a terrible, terrible thing. And Epidiolex really helps mitigate that. But that went through all kinds of tests with FDA and the EU, which is okay. That's there's nothing wrong with that. But we have nothing else out there that has currently been approved. There may be stuff that's being tested. I really haven't looked into that because that's pharmaceutical, and really technically we're classified as nutraceuticals. We are
Right.
we are nutritional supplements. When people say, "Well, what about this and what about I got this and that? What do you think?" I said, "Well, have you talked to your physician yet?" And I have in several spots on my site, check with your physician first. In my post about CBD oil and child safety, which will hopefully be posted sometime tomorrow. Another plug, another shameless plug. Shoot, but seriously, I on every as much as possible, I say check with your physician first because we are not doctors, we are not dentists, we are not psychiatrists, et cetera, et cetera. We are not pharmacists. We can't prescribe. We we don't refer to the CBD that you buy. We don't. The dose would be X. We say the serving size. Again, it's a nutritional supplement, and the FDA is very, very clear on that one, and that I follow that to the letter. So it's like I take a stack of vitamins. I take my multi. I take my C. I take my D. I take my B12 and a few others, and and I take my CBD along with that. And because I look at it as a nutritional supplement. Does it do great things? In a lot of cases, it does. There's things that it does for me that I'm not going to get from a vitamin, but I can't say that publicly because it's anecdotal. There's not necessarily any group of studies that will prove that CBD will do X, Y, and Z. And there's so many different formulations of CBD products out there. You'd have to pick a formulation, a specific formulation, test it, and go through a for real, say a teaching hospital study that's properly managed and properly supervised, and test it that way. You have a placebo, you have one group, group A, group B, etc. We don't have that yet. More and more studies are being done, but you don't have that huge body of information that the pharmaceutical industry has. And that's part of their game plan. When a company puts together a formulation, they're going to, most cases, they're going to outsource it to another company that just does the manufacturing. Okay. You may buy a product. I don't manufacture anything. I take prepackaged products and sell them. And these are all from very ethical and very reputable vendors. But most of those vendors will outsource the actual manufacture to somebody else. So they're giving them a formulation, and that company may have 14 other formulations to manufacture that week. Make sense?
Yeah. Oh no, it definitely does. And
So it's very, very, very hard to have a set of it'll do this because the formulations are going to be different. And
no doubt.
and the FDA is not in a position where they can sit there and approve or test and approve of 5,000 different formulations for capsules or tinctures or edibles.
Yeah, for sure. And there's gonna have to be some regulation is gonna be a good thing for your industry,
I,
right?
I would love to see some sound, intelligent regulation because that would flush out a lot the rest of the bad actors.
Yeah, for sure. Um, well, I appreciate the information that you've given us about your industry. I think that your industry is one of the most interesting things in the business world right now because, like, and I'm gonna give a disclaimer to myself here, right? Um, my experience with these products is probably different than the average use case of someone that is getting marketed these things, but the stuff works, right? Like there's a real medical use for these things and a real benefit to a lot of people for some of the ailments that we deal with that these things can remedy. Or at least help treat, right? So it's an interesting thing to me because you're gonna find, there's gonna be this own bucket created for your industry. It's gonna be held to a standard of its own. And I'm just like you, where I'm excited for some of that regulation to pass so that we as consumers can really understand who we're doing business with. But I would say for people that are listening now, if you want more information, please check out Groovy Hemp Company. Robb, you've been an awesome guest. I appreciate you a ton. I just have a couple of more things for you here. So, how do people find you, right? If people want to ask you questions, if people want to buy something from you, where do they go to reach out to you and to your company?
At groovyhempcompany.com. And we have an email address that's support@groovyhempcompany.com. Send me a message. I will get back to you with an answer. Do not ask me for medical advice. Do not ask me for a prescription. I don't do that. I am not qualified or legally allowed to give anybody medical advice. So please don't ask me that.
For sure.
I will very politely recommend you talk to your physician. But if you have questions about our products and you want to know more about our products, send me an email. I will give you an intelligent, well written answer. I will answer every intelligent email or semi intelligent email that is sent to me.
um, and then so the way that we kind of always end the podcast here, right, is talking about the name of the podcast is Burn the Ship, right? We're kind of drawing that same illusion from Hernan Cortez telling all of his guys, hey, disassemble these ships while we've landed in Central America. We're going to figure it out here or we're going to die, right? And I think that business is very similar to that illusion where everyone kind of has this light switch moment of like, you realize, okay, I've got to go all in on this thing to make it work for me. And I'm going to work really hard because I love this thing that I do. Right. And my question to you is, what kind of gratification have you gotten out of, learning about and staying interested in this industry and really turning it into a business for you? And really, do you regret jumping into this industry that is still plagued by, um, a lack of federal regulation and slow movement on the legislative side and still some bad information that floats around on the internet? Like, how do you feel looking up if you were to sum up your whole entrepreneur experience in the CBD world?
I don't regret anything, to be honest. There's things I could have done better, and there's things I could have been smarter about. Like any other entrepreneur, you make mistakes. You can sit there and, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I hadn't done this. Or you can say, okay, this is what I learned from that experience, and this is how I'll improve. It in a lot of ways, it's been very, very positive in terms of I think it's made me a smarter business person. I think it's made me help me learn how to learn better, if that makes any sense at all. And that's a skill that you can take anywhere and do anything with. It's you hear about signals versus noise. And there's been a couple of very, very smart business books written about that. I really learned how to punch through the noise and find the signal in the CBD industry because I had to, because I just was not, I knew enough, and I'm scientific enough, and shall we say analytical and objective enough that I just didn't believe a lot of the early whatever, use whatever term you want. And it's like, no, I want to see what's accurate. I want to get to the truth, meaning not somebody else's make pretend truth, but what is actually accurate and factual. And this has really honed my instincts for that and maybe help me get better at that. You're never too old to learn. Never.
No, you're definitely not. Yeah, if you're not learning and growing, you're dying. You know what I mean? It's one of those things you just can never give up. Like, and I encourage other people that are listening to that too. There's something new that you can learn about your industry, or there's something new that you can learn about the people that you are trying to hire or already working with. There's always a way to continue filling that bucket, right? Because when your cup is full, it's really hard to make changes and understand what's going on around you. So I encourage people to do that on their own research and take that analytical approach both to your industry and their own, right? If you're a business person right now, you have to be able to look and reflect and diagnose and understand what is going on with your business and with your industry in order to be at the top of your game. So if there's anything to take away from that, it's that there are really good places and really bad places to research different products online. They're going to paint a completely different picture, and that you having that analytical eye and understanding of yourself and the issues that you're having that are making you do this research and what you want out of those things is just it's incredibly beneficial to your mind to be doing that little mental workout. It's beneficial in your everyday life to have that knowledge, and it's beneficial to know how to go find answers when you need answers about something. So I encourage all those people to do those same things. And Rob, again, I appreciate you. This has been a very interesting conversation for me, and I'm really interested to see where your industry goes, and I'm interested to see how my industry reacts to things. Right, like we have a home now for how we board CBD deals and deals related to these kind of industries, and we have a pretty good solution for it. But you're still held to a little bit different standard than a typical merchant, and that's something that I'm looking forward to seeing go away. So, if you have anything else to leave everyone with, please, the platform is yours. But I
Well,
just wanted to say I appreciate it again, and this has been Burn the Ship.
oh, I appreciate the opportunity, and I really enjoyed this conversation. It was extremely productive, and I do enjoy talking about the industry. And there's so many interesting things that are going on in this. It's never boring, never boring. It's never dull. It's always a challenge. And you know what? To me, that's as far as I'm concerned, that's healthy. That's healthy and productive. The more I learn, the more I grow, the happier I am.
I agree. I agree. Well, thank you, sir. I look forward to it. We'll edit this, and we'll get it out there to the world over the next week ish. And I'll be back in touch with you once we put it out. Okay.
I appreciate it. And again, I appreciate the opportunity. And you have a great rest of the week and weekend.